A couple months ago, a cool video popped in my feed titled The Commander Deck That Never Casts Anything. It lays out exactly what it describes: a full blown EDH deck designed to do all of the normal stuff a deck should do without ever casting a single spell. Not even the commander, even though he ends up on board. It's got counterspells, tutors, board wipes, card advantage, and if you have the right combination of cards in your hand and graveyard, you can actually win the game. Until this point, I had never seen Strategy before, but after I finished the video, I reached out to him to talk about a potential collab, because although this deck isn't likely to be very strong or win a lot of games, it pushes the boundaries of deck building in a way that I appreciate far more than just winning. I wanted to pick his brain and see if he had any other weird ideas, and we talked about it for a bit. In the spirit of jankiness, he told me to come up with a mono blue -1/-1 counter deck. And in return, I challenged him to build an Is It Landfall deck. We would each make a video, and the person with the most likes after 1 month would be declared the winner. After you finish this video, check out Strategy's deck list and make sure to leave a like on whoever had the coolest deck. You can also let us know in the comments who won the challenge if you ended up liking both videos or you just want to discuss the brews further. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below, and while you're over there, you might as well subscribe. He's got all sorts of wacky decks and weird ideas, and I'm sure if you're watching this, you'd enjoy his stuff too. So let's lay down the rules real quick because there isn't too much to remember. First, the deck must fit within the specified color identity, in my case blue. The theme or general strategy for me must involve -1/-1 counters. And finally, we get extra credit if our commander has less than 1,000 lists on EDH Rec. This won't translate to any tangible score difference or anything, just more of a target to shoot for, though I doubt it'll be an issue for either of us. I should also say I have no idea what Strategy even came up with. We plan on releasing these videos at the same time, and we have no spoilers leading up to now. I'm secretly hoping he put Kozuma in his build because I think that card is sick, but it also doesn't say landfall anywhere on the card, so I'll have to see if it caught his attention. I don't know how the process went for him, but the archetype he gave me definitely melted my brain. Well played, Strategy. With this deck, there's only one real place to begin. I read every card in the blue color identity that involves -1/-1 counters, and while that might sound like overkill, when you realize there's only 43 cards, 30 of which are colorless, I quickly wish there was a lot more. But it's called a challenge for a reason, and there's still enough here to at least get a foundation. Let's talk about the few cards I didn't include. There's a cycle of scarecrows that gain abilities like Wither and Persist as long as you control creatures of various colors. The only one that even looks for blue creatures gains flying with blue. The Persist comes from something black. And while I thought it would be funny to make a janky blind seer build, I quickly banished the thought for obvious reasons. Most of what's left are actually in the final deck, with the exception of Infect. I kept the stuff that proliferates in Phyrexian Juggernaut, but after a lot of testing, the rest of the Infect stuff kinda got in the way and took up too much space. Some of these leftovers are definitely doozies, but there are also some that are all-stars that deserve their flowers, but I'll get to that in a bit. Our base is a collection of Wither and creatures that put -1/-1 counters on themselves for some reason or another. If we were to take these out of the deck, it would just be a handful of cards, and at that point, I wouldn't have much of a theme. So I figured whatever commander we pick should probably synergize with this awkward self-withering we do. Luckily in blue, there's actually a few decent options. The first one I thought of was Chisei, but this effect only removes counters without giving us any value. I wanted to find something that could actually benefit from our strange package. Next, I found Goldberry, and this really got me thinking. From the cards I had so far, Goldberry actually comboed with 2 to make a decent engine. If you enchant Goldberry with Sinking Feeling, you can pay 1 mana to untap her and put a -1/-1 counter on her. Then we can activate her second ability, moving the counter from her to another creature we control to draw a card. We can repeat this process as much as we have mana to pay and creatures to wither. That's where the real spice comes in. With Grim Papa in play, we can throw the counters on him, then use his ability to fling them on opponent's creatures instead. While this combo is sick, and frankly I'm proud of finding it, the unfortunate reality is Goldberry is just too slow. Without this combo, she takes 2 turns to draw 1 card and move a counter back and forth. And seeing how Grim Papa is 7 mana for some reason, relying on this combo every game is just unreasonable. With this in mind, I ended up putting this combo in the 99 and kept onward with the search. The commander I ended up on was Danny Pink. For 4 mana, you get a 4/3 body that reads Mentor, and creatures you control have, whenever one or more counters are put on this creature for the first time each turn, draw a card. Danny still winds up being a bit slow, but he's much faster and more reliable than Goldberry, serving as a singular card draw engine that acts like a mix between Nadu and Beast Whisperer depending on the situation. Of course, we still need to find ways to continuously put counters on our creatures every turn, but that's a much easier hoop to jump through. With that said, let's showcase some of our best synergies so far. Leechbonder, Grim Poppet, and Chainbreaker each enter with counters, immediately triggering Danny with the added bonus of potentially moving these counters to our other creatures to draw even more. Sinking Feeling and Matopi Golem allow us to pay 1 mana on our turns as well as opponents' turns, triggering the draw more than once per round. If we put Sinking Feeling on Grim Poppet, this turns into a sweet combination that's just begging to be 2-for-1 by any removal. Wicker Warcrawler, Unstable Mutation, Serrated by Skellion, Serrated Arrows, and Giant Oyster each manage to put counters on either themselves or other targets each turn, netting us a sick compounding effect. Although the counters placed on Shield Sphere aren't technically -1/-1s, I'm counting it as on theme, which puts it in this category too. Of course, we also have 9 different ways to proliferate, which can draw us a ton of cards at once. I'm sure by now you've thought, this is all great, man, but if you're just putting -1/-1 counters on your creatures, isn't all of our card draw just tied to bodies that are going to get smaller and smaller until they die? Yes, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. All of this has only been the card draw, so what are we digging for? The main combo piece I'm about to show you is a very well-known card, but it's always only used in +1 counter decks. So much so that when I reread it, I discovered a slight wording detail that actually makes it incredibly good for this dumb build too. The Ozolith says, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. This means when our creatures eventually perish, all of their counters are thrown onto the Ozolith, and when we move to combat, we can use the Ozolith to put those counters on opponents' creatures. For some reason, I thought this only put counters back onto your own stuff, but it's actually even better than that in this weird niche way. This turns the Ozolith, normally a +1 counter transporter, into an unorthodox killing machine. Finally, if we couple this whole card draw death apparatus with a lifeline, we might not be able to kill our opponent's stuff, but we do get a couple benefits. First, we can weaken opponents' creatures 1 by 1, leaving them with pathetic 1/1 or even 0/1 bodies if they have big butts. Second, our withered creatures can never truly die, but they keep drawing us cards. And finally, we can turn the Ozolith's second ability back on our own creatures to draw an extra card during our combat. If those counters kill the creature, which they likely will, then they will immediately go right back onto the Ozolith. It's like a really convoluted perpetual motion machine that draws us 1 card on each of our turns. To find our Ozolith or Lifeline, we have a number of artifact tutors, which also helps us find any other pieces we could need after that. Half of the non-lands are artifacts, so there's always something to search for. Wincons sort of fall on the back burner, but they're definitely here. Darksteel Reactor and 20-Toed Toad both take advantage of our reusable proliferate engines, and we can easily reach 13 cards in hand for Triskaidekaphile. Mechanized Production is particularly nice since there's a load of sweet artifacts to copy. What I've shown you is pretty much the bulk of the deck. There are a few extra cards that have surprising synergies, like Deadeye Navigator allowing us to cheat counters onto the Ozolith without our creature actually dying, and allowing us to flicker Danny to reset his once per turn effect on all our creatures. Or Willbreaker, which allows us to steal opponents' creatures by putting -1 counters on them, and if they ever get them back, they'll still have that permanent weakness. Overall, I'm pretty proud of this deck. Using the bracket system, I would definitely call this a bracket 1 deck. It just has a little too many holes and not enough juice to actually try to compete against other serious decks, but it's still a super fun and wacky concept. And I'm happy Strategy gave me this one. Before you head over to his channel, there's one thing we at Cardboard Junkies want to announce. Long story short, we were going to give away this awesome Plains enamel pin from Pinfinity, but our generous partners over there offered to give away a complete set of mana symbols to one lucky viewer. So if you're interested in winning either a Plains or a full set, we'll be picking 2 random people who fill out the Google form in the description. No need to like or comment or anything, just fill out the form and only like the video if you think my deck won the challenge. If you want to get your hands on some other awesome pins, check out our Pinfinity affiliate link in the description and use code CJ when you check out to get 20% off your entire order. Now it's time. Head over to Strategy's channel and watch his competing deck list. I know that's the first thing I'm doing as soon as these go live. Thanks to Strategy for collaborating, and thanks y'all. I'll see you next time.